Take that cost money away from here, Grandmaster shouted. Oh no, oh no, please help me. I don't know what is happening. I am confused, Ebuka cried, falling to the floor. Leave, you cast this upon yourself.
Welcome back to Ivy Stories and Folktales. Stay entertained. Ebuka, a skilled tailor who lives in a small village with his mother, struggled with poverty despite his expertise. His mother, a diligent farmer, could barely make ends meet and often had to borrow money from people around who comes back angry and throwing insults on her. Ebuka, desperate to improve their situation, tried various business ventures in the village, but nothing seemed to work. Determined to change his fate, he decided to venture into the city for greener pastures. Upon arriving in the city, Ebuka faced immediate challenges. Without a place to stay, he found himself sleeping under the bridge, shivering in the cold. The next day, he went into the street. While he was walking down the road, he saw some people working in a building site as a bricklayer. He stopped by to ask for the manager. The manager came out. He pleaded with him and explained that his life depends on this job. He has had nothing to eat for 2 days now. The manager took pity on him and asked him to join them in working. Hours passed and it was time to go home. Ebuka took his bag and went into the streets looking hopeless and nowhere to go. Just as he left, Matthew, a young man working in the site, stopped him from behind. He turned and realized it was one of the workers. So he stopped. Matthew asked him, "Where are you going? I heard you talking to the manager that you had nowhere to go. You can come stay with me, if you don't mind." I stayed down the road. Ebuka, with no other option, followed Matthew to his house. The next day, they left home for work. When they got home that day, Matthew advised that they get another job added to the bricklaying job. So they started working as a security guard in a manufacturing company at night, while at day, they work as a bricklayer. But Ebuka was still bothered because the money was still not enough to save or even send back home. But he continued. One day, while working in the construction site, a white luxurious car pulled up and 2 young men came out. Ebuka was astonished by their wealth and felt they were too young to have such car. Ebuka thought of a way to approach the men, so he excused himself and told Matthew he needed to get something. He quickly ran to hid himself in the bush. Few minutes later, the young men got ready to leave. As Ebuka saw the car coming close, he jumped out of the bush, fell to the ground and started crying. "Please help me! Please help me! I am tired of suffering. I will do anything. I will do anything. Please help me." The young men, intrigued by his plea, introduced themselves as Kelly and Chibuzo. They told him today is his lucky day and asked him to hop into the car. They'll take him to somewhere. They drove him to a very big mansion far away from the city. When they arrived, Ebuka was surprised to see everyone wearing white, both male and female. They all looked rich and wealthy. He thought to himself, this isn't a party or a ceremony. While he was still thinking, an aged man walked in and everyone bowed their heads. Ebuka looked surprised and thought to himself, hope this is not an occult, oh, I will never be part of it, oh. Kelly and Chibuzo introduced Ebuka to the aged man. They call him Grandmaster of Wealth. The Grandmaster asked Ebuka, what do you want? Ebuka responded, I'm tired of suffering. I will do anything, but I'll never shed blood. I will never kill anybody. I don't want to stain my hands. Grandmaster smiled and said, you are in the right place. He explained that to gain riches, Ebuka will need to become a beggar. He will go into the streets to beg for money. The people who gave him money will lose their glory, but no lives will be lost. The money collected will be stored in the pots he will give to him. Ebuka, eager for wealth, agreed since no life will be lost and he won't need to sacrifice any life for his wealth. He agreed and willingly accepted the pots tied in a black nylon. When he arrived at home, he met Matthew eating. Matthew asked him, where have you been? He told Matthew he found a better job somewhere. The next morning, Matthew woke him up so they could leave for work. But he told Matthew to go. He will be a little bit late. Immediately Matthew left, he jumped off the bed, took a pair of scissors and made patches on one of his clothes. He took a bow and went to faraway city where he started begging. That day, Ebuka's attempts of begging failed. People laughed at him. Some threw stones and fruits at him. Others insulted him, telling him to go get a job. Disheartened, he returned to the young men who introduced him to Grandmaster, Chibuzo, and Kelly. When he explained his ordeal to them, they laughed at him. Kelly said, "No one will give an able-bodied man like you money. You have to gain their pity. Pretend to be deformed and they will pity you and help you." The next day, Ebuka set into the streets to beg. He started limping like a lame man. People felt pity for him and he received generous donations from passerby. He hurried to Grandmaster of Wealth and gave him the money. Grandmaster smiled and gave him a key to a car and a mansion, received the money and asked him to leave. He was so excited and rushed to see his new apartment. He was so surprised and overwhelmed. The next morning, he woke up to find an enormous sum of money on the floor. Overwhelmed, he fainted from the shock. Few weeks later, Ebuka went to visit Matthew. Matthew, who hadn't seen him for a while and now he's looking so wealthy, was puzzled and asked, "Where did you get the money to buy the car and the dress?" Ebuka fabricated a lie, telling him that he found a job in an oil company. They gave him a house and an official car. But Matthew was still not convinced, so he rejected the money Ebuka gave to him. Ebuka left and didn't even mind him. 4 months later, he visited his village. His mother was astonished by his newfound wealth and asked about his success. Ebuka told her the same lies of how he got a job in an oil company. They gave him a house and an official car. His mother was thrilled. She celebrated her son, cooked his best meal and invited neighbors to come join her celebrate. That night, while she was asleep, she had a bad dream about Ebuka. She was so scared for her son that she stayed up all night. As soon as the cock crowed, she woke her son up and told her about the dream. "My son, you have to be careful. I had a bad dream about you. I saw a dark cloud hovering around you. Maybe you should leave the company. It's not a good place," she said to Ebuka. Ebuka tried to calm her down and said, "Nothing is going to happen." He offered some money to the mom, but she rejected and asked him to leave the company. Ebuka left looking devastated, as the Grandmaster had commanded that any relative who rejects his money must never get favor from him anymore, else there will be great consequence. Back to the city, Ebuka dismissed his mother's concern and continued to live lavishly. He fell for Amaka, a beautiful woman who was already engaged to a wealthy man. Ebuka, consumed by desire, plotted to win her over, but she was still steadfast. She rejected all of Ebuka's advances and gifts to lure her. One day, Ebuka thought of a better plan to get her to himself. He staged a dramatic scene, pretending to be disabled, begging for money. Amaka's fiancé, who was driving down the lonely road, moved by his plight, gave him money. Ebuka, who knew what he had just done, went home so excited. The next day, Amaka's fiancé had his 4 stores burnt down, his warehouse burnt down, his 2 containers got sunk. It was a terrible situation. He lost everything and had to move to the village. But Amaka stayed back. She said there was no life for her in the village. She had to stay in the city and start her life again. She ended the relationship with her fiancé to start afresh. She got used to Ebuka coming around with lots of gifts and encouraging words, so she fell for him and they started dating. Days passed, months passed. Ebuka was doing great. One day, he went to a faraway city to beg. A young man dropped a single note on his bowl. For some reasons, people stopped giving him money. It was surprising to him. The next day, he went out. No one gave him money. That was when it dawned on him that there was a problem. He went to Grandmaster with the bowl. Immediately, Grandmaster saw him. He shouted, "Leave this place with that cost money. I warned you." Ebuka fell to the ground crying, "Please help me. Please help me. I don't know what's going on. I am confused. Please help me. I told you none of your relatives must give you money, but you didn't listen. You caused this upon yourself. Now leave this place," Grandmaster commanded. No, I know all of my relatives, both far and near. I think there's a mistake somewhere, Ebuka cried. Grandmaster conjured a mirror for him to see what actually happened, and he realized that the young man who gave him the single note was his step-cousin he didn't know. Devastated and confused, he cried, "What do I do, Grandmaster? Please help me. What do I do?" Ebuka cried. Grandmaster told him to look for the young man and ask him to collect the money from the bowl with the same hand he used in putting the money in. Ebuka thought for a moment. That is the end of the road for him. Where will he find the young man? But he didn't give up. He went back to the streets where the young man gave him the money. He asked around, but no one knew who he was. He searched and searched and searched, but he didn't see any familiar face. He rushed to the village. He begged his mom to tell him where his step-cousin lives, but she was afraid. She never told him about the cousin. So how did he find out? So she started asking him questions how he found out about his distant cousin. Ebuka yelled at her and asked her to talk and stop asking questions. She then wrote the address for him. He traveled back to the city in search of him. While in the streets trying to locate his house, he saw a familiar face. He grabbed him and started begging, "Please take your money, sir. Please take your money, sir. I don't need it." The young man turned and said, "I don't know you." Ebuka cried and said, "It's me, oh. It's me, the beggar you gave money 2 days ago." The young man smiled and said, "Oh, you. Whatever I did for you from my heart. You can keep the money. I am not a beggar, sir. In fact, I am your brother, oh, Mrs. Chiamaka's son. I am your distant step-cousin. Please, take back the money. I don't want it." The young man, looking scared, tried to pull out from Ebuka's hold. As they struggled, the bowl and the money fell to the ground. Immediately, the normal and sane Ebuka grew wild and started acting abnormal. He had lost his sanity. The young man called for help. Some guys came around and tied him up. The mom arrived and started crying. He called her pastor. The pastor came in and prayed for hours. He then turned to the mother. "Your son is only reaping what he sowed. The consequence of what he did is here to haunt him. There's nothing we can do." Few hours later, Amaka arrived and saw people gathered around. She asked for Ebuka. She said someone had directed her here. She needed to see Ebuka really quick. They took her to Ebuka's mother. "Good evening, ma. Please, I need to see Ebuka. His warehouse is on fire. His shops are all in flames. I have been calling his number, but no response. People had to direct me here." Ebuka's mom, in tears, took her to the backyard where Ebuka is lying on the floor. Amaka, looking so surprised and shocked, fell to the ground and started crying. Ebuka, the once deformed beggar, was now truly deformed, but now it is so real. He remained in chains while the mom kept searching for a solution, but to no avail. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments.